A fighter who made time and space look different, Anderson Silva was one of the most calm and precise strikers in MMA history. But what made him so special? Why did so many strong and fast opponents suddenly look lost when they faced him? He was not just winning fights, he was controlling them in a way that looked almost effortless. Fighters would enter the cage full of power and confidence, but after a few exchanges, they often looked confused, slow, and always just out of range. Anderson Silva did not try to fight harder than everyone else. Instead, he made them fight at his distance, where they could not land cleanly. So the big question is, how did Anderson Silva control distance so perfectly, fight after fight, against the best in the world? To understand this, we need to break his style down step by step. If you enjoy MMA breakdowns like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Iron Fist MMA. Who is Anderson Silva? Anderson Silva is a Brazilian MMA fighter and is widely known as one of the greatest strikers in UFC history. He became the UFC middleweight champion in 2006 and held the title for almost 7 years, which is one of the longest championship runs in UFC history. During his career, he defeated many top fighters, including Rich Franklin, Dan Henderson, Vitor Belfort, and Chael Sonnen. These were all elite opponents at the highest level of MMA. What made Silva truly special was not just his power or speed. It was his timing, movement, and distance control inside the cage. He had a rare ability to make world-class fighters miss again and again, while staying calm and composed under pressure. What does controlling distance mean? Before understanding Anderson Silva's skill, we need a simple idea. In fighting, distance means the space between two fighters, and it decides what attacks can land. There are usually 3 main ranges: long range, where fighters use kicks and movement, mid-range, where most punches happen, and close range, where clinching and grappling take place. Most fighters try to close the distance quickly, so they can land strong strikes and pressure their opponent. But Anderson Silva did something very different. Instead of rushing in, he controlled the space and made opponents fight where he wanted. His mindset was simple and powerful. You don't get to choose the distance. I do. This idea became the foundation of his fighting style and helped him stay one step ahead of some of the best fighters in the world. Silva's first weapon, one of Anderson Silva's most important habits, was how he used his front foot. He often placed it right at the edge of his opponent's reach. This small detail may look simple, but it created a big effect inside the fight. From that position, he was close enough to attack, but still far enough to avoid danger. This is often called edge control, where a fighter stays right on the border between safe and risky space. Because of this, his opponents would step forward thinking they were close enough to land a strike, but they were still just out of range. That feeling slowly builds frustration. When fighters get frustrated, they start making mistakes, and Silva was very good at taking advantage of those moments. The invisible wall effect. Many fighters said it felt like Anderson Silva was protected by an invisible wall. This was because of his small but smart movements. He used tiny steps backward, slight head movement, and small angle changes. These actions may look simple, but they are very effective in breaking an opponent's timing. When a fighter throws a punch, they expect to hit a clear target. But Silva would already be just outside that perfect range, so the punch would miss or fall short again and again. After a few misses, something changes in the fighter's mind. They start to doubt their timing and distance. This mental pressure becomes just as important as defense, because it slows their confidence and makes them hesitate in the fight. Silva's timing. Many people think Anderson Silva was the fastest striker in MMA, but that is not fully true. He was not always the fastest in pure speed. Instead, his real strength was timing, which was extremely accurate and well controlled. He had a great sense of reading fights. He could understand when an opponent would step forward, when they would fully commit to a punch, and when they would hesitate for a moment. This gave him a big advantage inside the cage. Instead of reacting after the attack started, Silva often moved just before it even began. This skill is called anticipation timing. It made it feel like he was reading the fight before it happened, always staying one step ahead of his opponents. The role of feints in distance control. Anderson Silva used feints all the time in his fights. A feint is a fake movement used to trick an opponent into reacting. He would slightly twitch his shoulder, fake a step forward, or pretend to throw a strike. Even these small actions were enough to change how his opponents moved inside the cage. The reason it worked is simple. Fighters must respect danger at all times. If they think a strike is coming, they react early to protect themselves. That reaction changes their position and distance without them realizing it. So Silva was not only controlling space with movement, he was also controlling it with fear and reactions, making opponents hesitate and lose their rhythm. Silva's famous lean-back defense, one of Anderson Silva's most famous defensive skills, was leaning back to avoid punches. This was not a random move. It worked because he was already managing distance very carefully inside the cage. He stayed just outside his opponent's range, watched their shoulders and hips closely, and reacted at the last possible moment. Because of this timing, he could make punches fall short without needing to block them. Instead of blocking strikes, he often made them miss completely, which saved energy and created counter opportunities. But the key point is this: he could only use this style because he controlled distance so well. If he was too close, this technique would be dangerous and much harder to use safely. The bait and punish strategy, Anderson Silva often looked very relaxed inside the cage, almost like he was not worried at all. But this was not carelessness, it was a smart strategy. He would stay still, leave small openings, and sometimes even invite his opponent to attack. The purpose was simple. When the opponent finally committed and threw a strike, Silva was ready to counter immediately. His timing made these counters very sharp and effective. This style only works if you control distance properly. If the opponent gets too close, counters become dangerous and harder to time. Silva made sure he stayed in the right range, so every attack came from a safe position where he could respond quickly and effectively. The jab and the front kick. Silva used two key weapons to manage distance. 1. The jab. He used the jab not just to strike, but to measure distance and see how close his opponent really was. 2. The front kick. He often used front kicks to keep his opponents away. These kicks did not always need to be powerful. Even light contact on the body or guard was enough to reset the distance. This helped him keep fighters uncomfortable, break their pressure, and control the rhythm of the fight in his favour. Angle changes, Anderson Silva rarely moved in straight lines. Instead, after exchanges, he often stepped slightly to the side. This small habit made a big difference in fights. It gave him better striking angles, safer positions, and it confused his opponents. Most fighters rely on straightforward movement, but Silva broke that pattern completely. Because of this, even when opponents tried to close distance, they often ended up in worse positions than before, giving Silva more control. Why opponents could not solve him? Many top fighters tried different ways to beat Anderson Silva. They used forward pressure, wrestling attempts, fast combinations, and heavy feinting. But most of them still struggled for one main reason. They could not find the right distance. They were either too far to land clean strikes, or too close and open to counters. Silva stayed in the perfect middle zone where he controlled the fight. Chael Sonnen fight. In the first fight with Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva showed an important lesson in distance control. Sonnen used constant pressure in many wrestling attempts, staying very active and aggressive throughout the fight. But Silva still stayed dangerous. Sonnen could not close distance cleanly, Silva remained just outside strong striking range, and he countered when openings appeared. This fight proved that pressure alone is not enough. Without distance control, pressure becomes predictable. The mental game of distance control, Anderson Silva's biggest advantage was not physical strength. It was psychological pressure. Fighters facing him often felt confused about timing, afraid of missing, and worried about being countered. This created hesitation in their minds. When a fighter hesitates, they stop stepping in fully, their strikes lose power, and their rhythm breaks. Silva used this hesitation as a major advantage to control distance in the fight. Why his style was so hard to copy? Many fighters tried to copy Anderson Silva's style, but most of them failed. Why? Because distance control is not just a technique. It needs timing experience, a calm mindset, high fight IQ, and the ability to read opponents clearly. Most fighters move too early or too late, but Silva stayed perfectly in between. Modern MMA and Silva's influence, today's fighters still study Anderson Silva's distance control. His style can be seen in fighters like Israel Adesanya and Stephen Thompson, along with many modern counter-strikers in MMA. They all use ideas like range management, angle control, and timing-based defense. But Silva's prime years remain special because he used all these skills naturally, smoothly, and with great consistency inside every fight. Anderson Silva was more than just a fighter. He controlled the space between himself and his opponents, making distance his biggest weapon. How did he stay so calm while others struggled? How did he always seem one step ahead? By staying just outside range and using timing, feints, and smart movement, he turned fights into controlled performances. His opponents were not only beaten physically, but also broken in rhythm, position, and confidence. That is why Anderson Silva is remembered as one of the greatest distance controllers in MMA history. In his world, the fight was never about strength alone. It was always about who controlled the space. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe to Iron Fist MMA for more fight analysis.